All right, everybody, let's get this space warmed up here. Retweet the pinned graphics, retweet the room in the comments. Let us know where you're tuning in from. I love how international these spaces are, and we'll get this party started. Hello and welcome everybody to the Max Impact Show. This is the live spaces show that is all about empowering you, the change makers, the regens, the solar punks to maximize your positive impact in the world by leveraging the latest and greatest technology. I'm really grateful to have Richard with us on the show today. I'm your host, Jimi Cohen. Richard has invented the SolaRoof technology. He's also the CTO of Pyropod Global over in Canada, and you've dedicated your multiple patents to the open source movement, which I think is really, really cool. You're building Web3 creative community commons community to propagate solar roof technology worldwide. Super stoked to have you on the show, Sunjen. We have a tradition on this show, and that is to always start with why. So when I ask you what's your why, Richard, I'm talking about your personal why, your inner drivers, your motivators. Why do you do all the amazing things that you do? What's your why?
Oh, hi, Jimmy. It's so great to be here on a Friday afternoon. What could be better, huh? Yeah, why? Well, goes back a long ways. I've been at this my life. I'm in my 70s now, early 70s, I must say. But yeah, I started really as a young person concerned about famine. Imagine that, way back when I was a kid. Yeah, I was concerned. We had different concerns. We thought maybe there's going to be World War III, nuclear disaster, stuff like that. We also were exposed to the fact that there's not really, good, secure sources of food in this world. And so it set me thinking on that. I was quite motivated as a very young kid, really. And I got into what I would say inventing, right? So anyway, follow that through, years that I dropped out of school, kicked around, looking into agriculture all over. Well, I was in, of course, Canada, but looking around, Ontario, a lot of communes and different places in those days that I was hanging out and looking into. I also went into an agricultural college. Again, I couldn't really take it. The education I thought was pulling me in the wrong direction, almost like a mind pollution. And yeah, I just charted my own course. I ended up going out to Eastern Canada. Prince Edward Island, was there for a few years. And I was exposed to a really wonderful team out there because we had the first UN Habitat Conference, 1976 in Canada. And the project that was the demonstration project was called the ARC. The ARC was built by a group out of MIT and was led by John Todd, who became one of the ocean, biologists, ecologists, really a leader in his day. And he built with his team this ARC. Was a great demonstration project. I of course, found that very informative of what I was always thinking about, because the ARC was self-sufficient, was supposed to really be showing, trying to demonstrate a self-sufficiency in habitat. So what we do, produce all the food, clean the water, look after the sanitation, generate the energy. Yeah, it's a big deal, right? And I would say that even today, there probably hasn't been such a really fantastic demonstration project. And one of the problems is that, we don't propagate the know-how. The know-how is somehow lost, swallowed up. Why is that happening? Well, it's, I would say that the world we're in, right, reality we live in, is very much driven by the profit motive and by the corporate model. And basically, they're interested in creating a situation, let's say an economy, where we're all consumers, we're not producers. And so and this has been a model, and it's a model for exploitation. Okay, we also have to understand that it is an exploitive model. And where does it come from? It's down through history, because rulers controlled the food of their own people in order to subjugate them, right? Because a ruler has subjects, right? These people are basically oppressed in their rights. And one of the things that the kings would do, as I said, they would say, well, you cannot hunt in the forests. And remember, there was a lot of forests when you go back in those days. So why did the rulers do that? Well, they wanted to enslave the population to produce commodities. And that's where grain comes from, corn and wheat and rice and all that. If you look around the world, what you see is millennia of warfare community. And this is focused on, really compelling people to produce these materials, which our food system is based on. But what really is important with these materials is, as commodities, is that as grain, they have a long shelf life. And on that shelf life, on that reserve of energy, right, of food, of carbs, right, carbohydrate, is based the ability of rulers to exert power in the world. So prior to that, of course, we had a fresh food economy. We had our food forests. Food forest is a new idea, but it's old ancient tradition. And in many ways, we have a revolution happening in our food system, in our agriculture. And agriculture to me is a difficult word, but people understand it, so I'll just use it. But it's a revolution in agriculture which says we have to have that sustainability, and that sustainability does not come from monocrops, and monocrops are a problem. So what we have is new directions in organic agriculture. That's been up and coming for a long time. Permaculture, more recent. Also now more of an appreciation of what nature can provide in food forests and such. And the thing about all this methodology and all that kind of approach to getting our food is that we're not battling with nature, and we're not picking a fight, that we're going to lose, really. And so what we're doing in modern agriculture took this whole thing with the grain and the commodity, with advanced, technology, and of course, petroleum energy, and push it to a insane level where we have, taken about 5 billion hectares of nature out of out of circulation. It's all that's the amount of land that we're using for so-called food system, and that food system's not feeding everybody, obviously, right? We're not feeding the world. So what's happening is that its food system is taken over by a corporate supply and a consumer model, and it's extremely energy intensive. If people really look at it, you've probably heard that more calories go into growing our food than we get out of it. Yeah. So there's all the problems, right? And now on top of that, we've got climate change. We've got water droughts that are mega droughts, because they are driven by climate change. And it's not a question of the climate will correct itself. No, the climate is heading in a direction towards global warming and overheating, as we might call it. Sounds a little more threatening to say it's a runaway global heating. But when we see the heat waves, when we see the wildfires, I think, we can pretty much use our common sense and conclude that, there's a problem with this system that we've been operating for so long. So how and what do we do about it? As I said, I was concerned with famine, way back when, and so I continued to be. So what I wanted to do then was invent a way that we could grow our own food in a small space. So one of the things I call is make a small space to make the world a better place. That's actually words out of Michael Jackson, if you want to know. So what does this look like? And I thought, oh, we have to have our food every day. It doesn't matter if it's too hot or too cold and extreme winter weather like we have in Canada, or if you're down in Arizona, or gosh, we've had heat waves come right up into Alberta and British Columbia there. We've got all these problems with growing our food because the weather and nature is being unkind to us. And why not? We've been very unkind to nature. So I thought, okay, let's grow our food in a controlled environment. That's what I'm doing. That's what I've invented. And you could say it's a greenhouse, right? People will relate to the technology as a greenhouse structure. And we can grow in the summer, we can grow in the winter. There's no problem with weather, rain, wind, hail, whatever you've got happening, which is going to threaten our food supply. So really, it's food security. But people will say, but wait a minute, what about the capital cost? What about the energy to operate this? How does it cool and how does it heat? And isn't it just another big problem? So instead of having the problem of growing the food out in the garden, out in the field, now you've got the problem of the cost of this controlled environment. So I said, okay, let's invent a type of greenhouse that is actually getting all of its energy from the sun, right? So we don't need conventional energy. And then what about this water issue? Because we've got all kinds of drought, mega drought around the world now. It's getting worse and worse. And what about the heat, overwhelming? Because a glass house, right? A greenhouse, so we think of it the way we normally think of it, is going to overheat like crazy. So, common sense would say, well, greenhouse is not really a solution. And you know what? We don't see much produced in greenhouses. It's less than 1%. So I think that actually the technology that we have is not doing the job. However, as an inventor, I'm saying, try out my way. I've got a new way, right? So what does it involve? It involves working with water. And I was saying my presentation today is really about circular water. It's about what we also call green water. What is this green water and why is it so important? And by the way, how does the Mother Earth control her own climate? Or is it just an accident that we've got all this thriving natural world, right? No, of course, it's no accident. Mother Nature figured out the problem, handles all this vast energy that's coming from the sun, right? Vast amount of energy. The energy from 1 hour of sunshine on this planet equals the whole world's energy budget, total energy for a year. So 1 hour sun. So we've got a lot of energy to use. It's just that we're not finding good ways to use it. And when you look at our ideas that are out there, like let's look at passive solar homes, right? Because there we try to create structures that are solar design. But what have the specs turned out to be over the past 40 years is a super insulated home with opaque roofs, with very few windows, and they're all on a wall facing south. And that is the code for passive solar. So I say to myself, well, that's not passive, that's dead. That's not interacting at all with the sun. Where does all the energy go? It heats up the roof. That's it. You still need air conditioning, or you need a lot of insulation, and all of that has a cost. So what happens if we let all that light in and you're expecting overheating? Well, that's the magic. That's the magic of what we depend on the plants to do the work of cooling. Okay, and how we go about that is what I'm teaching as what I call SolaRoof. SOLAROOF, SolaRoof. So I took one R out, jammed the two together, SolaRoof, you know. Yeah, and that's been a brand now that I've propagated for more than a couple of decades. And the technology that's associated involves 6 patents that describe this new kind of transparent building that uses water up in the roof itself. So put the water up in the roof, but with certain strategy, you know, with certain mechanics and ways of working with this water. So it's a water working process. And then down below, in the space where we're going to grow the plants, we also work with water. And we've got a lot of water in our buildings. And now, of course, I'm commercializing this technology with Aubrey. Aubrey's on the call here, my partner in PyroPod. And so people that want to know more in detail about the technology can go to pyropod.com, and that's PYRAPOD, PyroPod. You know, we took Pyra is from pyramid, and what we're really looking to do is work at the base of the pyramid of humanity, right? You know, because you know you got the 1% at the top are doing fine, and you got the largest majority of the population at the base of the pyramid are really in big trouble. So what we want to do with PyroPod is to get solutions to everyone, everywhere, and you can build pyropods in your backyard and in your community. And what you'll see there, have a look at the website, is technology. There's different ways that I work with the water in the roof system, but it basically involves using soap. Yeah, there's just a soap in the water. We circulate water to the roof in 2 ways, right? We don't have a lot of water up there. All the quantity of water is down below on the ground, you know, because it's heavy, right? It's heavy. Water is a great heat capacitor, so it's our thermal flywheel. But we're using soap solution as the working fluid, and we push that soap liquid up into the roof, and we use it in 2 form. Is a liquid cooling that's flowing down on the inner, so there's a double layer, and on the inner skin, outer skin, inner skin, in the inner skin we have a cooling liquid flow of water, a thin film flowing. And what that does is it couples the inside skin temperature to the mass of water we have in the base of the building. Okay, so the temperature of the skin, so in other words, if you were in your house and you say, okay, what's the temperature of the ceiling? What's the temperature of the walls? You know, you could find that temperature. And if you're in a building with no insulation, you know, I've been in tin cover, you know, tin roof buildings across the tropics, you know, and in communities, poor communities, and you've seen pictures, you know, probably, and maybe you've been there, but what you have is a heat radiator. The tin roof warms up, gets so hot that you can cook on it. So how is that going to be acceptable as a shelter in a hot climate? It's going to kill you, actually, right? So the problem is that our building envelopes heat up, right? That's why we have a cooling load. When we're air conditioning, it's because our roof is hot. You know, let's not be, you know, it's a very simple problem. The roof is hot. So what if you have a roof that never gets hot, right? You just have to think about that. A roof that doesn't get hot. So I'm just telling you that our roof is at the temperature of our water thermal mass, which is in the ground. It's in the base of the building, subgrade or on grade or in grade. And so that is part of the puzzle solved right there, that we're coupling our building envelope temperature to our thermal mass, right? Okay. And then I mentioned that it's a double layer. Well, they're both transparent. Both layers are transparent. And what happens when sunlight goes through water? Well, it's like when sunlight goes through a cloud, right? We know that clouds cool. If you're in a hot climate, you're looking for water. You're also looking for shade. You're looking for the cooling shade of clouds, and they're just not there, right? That's the problem. So when we use our soapy water, we can blow bubbles, liquid shading. So I call it dynamic liquid shading. And it insulates. Wow. Also insulates. Wow. Now, the insulation factor is very good. And by the way, I've been pushing all these ideas out there for decades. And what we need is academics and people in leadership and people in the professional and maybe in the climate control industry, air conditioning, building heating, cooling, to maybe give this a little bit of a look. And because we've managed to get some people to do that. And when they get their data, they say, oh my gosh, it's a more than 10 times saving and reduction because of the liquid bubble insulation. Yeah. So not only can we control the climate in the building by controlling the temperature of the roof, we can also insulate from extreme heat and cold. So, if you're in a very difficult environment, well, you're not exposed to that environment. You have a insulation property, R30, R40. That's normal for a Pyrapod building, right? Using SolaRoof technology. So, this is a big breakthrough. And what we can do is create really not passive buildings, and people would say, but wait a minute, it's not active solar, because what is active solar is not building integrated. Okay, the active solar systems that we know of, right, are panels that you mount on your roof. It's not your building that's doing the work, right? It's these components that you mount on the roof. But what we're doing is making the entire roof as an active system. So I call it dynamic. It's a dynamic system, not a passive system. It's not active in the way that we know active solar designs, whether it's PV, hot water, or other components you can put on your roof. Yeah. So it's a new type of solar technology, and so we need to get people familiar, with it. Yeah.
Super cool, Richard. Sounds like an amazing journey you've been through over the years, and kudos to you for leading the food revolution. I know we got another regenerative farmer in here. Ed, feel free to come up as well and join this discussion. Man, you make my job really easy. Ask one question, we go for 30 minutes. But it's been so great listening to your story and hearing what you're about and all this amazing stuff that you've managed to invent. So I know that that forms of insulation are like able to be leveraged for carbon credits, and also like, oh gosh, like air conditioning must use so much energy globally. I mean, it's very significant, right? So if you can avoid that, I mean, this made me think. Like I'm here in Kenya right now. There's a lot of tin roofs, and it is unbearably hot underneath those. It is really a problem. And so are you planning to leverage like carbon credits or regenerative finance in order to pioneer this technology? Is that on your roadmap? Are you thinking about those things?
Absolutely. We'd love to engage. And, it takes people, it takes a really interdisciplinary team to mobilize new technology, right? And so we want all the help we can get. We've got, teams around the world. Some are associated with universities. Our work out in Alberta and in BC. Aubrey's on the call here. We could see if he would like to pitch in here as well. Um, but yeah, we love to work with everyone. I've connected a little bit with Ed. I love to hear what Ed would say, and yeah, let's have a little more discussion.
Yeah, let's turn into a roundtable discussion. We got Crypto Bus, aka the Geezers. Welcome up here. I know you got an awesome space as well, Geezers. You're most welcome. Ed, what are your thoughts on this technology of the solar roof and the pods? It seems like you have quite a few different pods. I'm going through your website and I'm just looking at so amazing, like these giant structures. They're taking off in China. It looks like. But Ed, what are your thoughts on this food revolution that's taken place?
Thanks, Jimmy, and great to hear Richard's presentation. Um, I guess coming from the regenerative ag community, one of the things that we're really looking at is nutrient density and spectrum of our food, because that's really become something we've really become aware of, that the food produced conventionally just has lost a lot of its nutrition and density and spectrum. And of course, that leads to, we're not eating food just to eat food. We're eating food because we need the nutrition. And we've seen a lot of health problems and diseases arrive because of those problems. And the problem we find with any greenhouse condition is that what you produce is only reflective of what it ate. So in other words, what your food ate. And we find in greenhouse conditions, it just doesn't have the spectrum that we can get when we have the microorganisms in the soil do that.
Yeah,
That's where.
Ed, if I could reply to that, like we're not proposing any synthetic fertilizer. We love organic systems. We're also very favorable. We have many people looking at aquaponics, which is natural source nutrient from the fish waste, and all that can go into soils. We can grow in our SolaRoof buildings with what I recommend really, Ed, is the five kingdoms of life. We should have animals, plants, fungi. We want the algae and the bacteria, and of course the bacteria are really recycling, so anaerobic and aerobic digestion, worms, and all those systems belong to create good food, real food. So please don't associate my work with technological. So people don't like technology because they think it's anti-life, right? But what we're doing is using technology for life, and so what we want to do is enhance the ecological processes that nature works with, and just give this environment, which is year round, in whatever the season, that we can grow multiple crops and thereby, increase the food supply.
So you have an active functioning soil system that's feeding the plants?
Yeah, one of my first projects was with the Ayurvedic people in Fairfield, Iowa, at MUM, Maharishi University of Management. Yeah, and they're basically it's vegan or vegetarian. Fish can be in the system. And there's also been interest in, as a chicken house and so on. So basically, instead of a barn, you'd have a solar roof, and you'd have a low energy climate control for your animals. The animals can go in and out, like the free range. A lot of times the animals like to be under the shelter, right? Because if it's, whatever the situation is, might be outside. But basically, yeah, we've had interest in dairy barns. And, one thing you can do also with the daylight in the building is grow fodder. So, we think about food, but there's really 4 categories that I'm interested in is food, feed, fiber, and fuel crops. So fuel crops also, which can produce biofuels like algae as well. Yeah, although that's not a plant in the plant kingdom, but still, photosynthetic energy conversion to carbohydrates, right? So we get carbohydrates, and then we can convert to hydrocarbon. And that's an incredibly clean. It's clean energy.
Yeah, see, we've looked at people that use the fish to create the nutrients for the plants, but then it goes back to what the fish ate, because it is what the fish ate. So we find that is limiting, so that then we don't have, again, where we have a lot of systems in food production now that just don't have the access through the soil does to the nutrients to get the full spectrum and density that we need. So
Ed, I want to win you over. I want to be a collaborator. I just said it's an ecosystem. There are no synthetics. There's not even synthetic light. Now we can use lamps to supplement, but we don't believe in these whole ideas of grow food in the dark in a warehouse and all that, which is the high-tech crazy kind of approach that people have. So yeah, we want to feed our fish with their natural food, not this pelletized food. We produce worms, produce black soldier fly larvae. We handle organic waste. We recycle all the we eat the food product, right? That we're harvesting the food, but then there's the whole plant, right? That goes back into the regenerative growing. So, we're not using synthetic, nutrients. Well, I wouldn't even call them nutrients, but, like urea and stuff that they can manufacture. I would call it similar to raising a child on sugar, right? Yeah, you got carbs, but hey, you're going to kill, it's not healthy. So the healthy food is the key. And we want to equip everyone to grow healthy food for themselves, because they can't go out to the supermarket and buy it, and the organic growers out there are struggling to find their markets. They're undercut with their pricing. They face a lot of obstacles. So one of my conclusions is let's enable people to grow their own food, very, very local. And we need many, many more small farmers, right? I mean, if a small farmer is growing food for 40 or 50 families, that's a hell of a good living. It's a really good livelihood there. And so very local, and we can do that with a solar roof. We can do it on a small footprint year round. We can supply the fresh food people need.
Kudos, brother.
Mm-hmm.
Great stuff. And I know you made all these patents that you've innovated open source. Like, what was some of the reasoning behind deciding to do that, to support the greater Creative Commons?
Yes, indeed. I believe it's so important that we find a new pathway for IP. What is IP? Is intellectual property. And, every creative person who does, something creative, you could be an artist, you write a book, you put your name, you're an author, right, of the book. And we know that belongs to you, and that's common law, right? It's understanding that you don't plagiarize someone else's book. Like, I can't just go out print your book and get money for it, claiming that put my name on it, right? No, That is not allowed. It's a common understanding. And when it comes into technology, it's like it's the same kind of problem, but it's very serious for humanity that when we get these innovations, in that can lift people up in their life, right? Like all the stuff that we have, we have this love-hate relationship with technology because most of it is used for applications like warfare, right? And that's because it comes under the control of the system that's exploiting us. That's the problem. It comes under the control. So IP, I generate the IP, but then it becomes owned by a third party, right? By a multinational. And, I've encountered many of these multinationals. Unfortunately, I raised all my own money and was doing all this work for decades around the world. Started here in Montreal, and Montreal has a wonderful, not Montreal, Quebec has a wonderful support for R&D, even by individuals, right? Not just by corporations. Had tax credits and incentives. So I was able to do all this work back in the 80s, early 90s. Then I became kind of a serial entrepreneur in the 90s. I was trying to find a pathway, right, to commercialize in Canada and in the USA. I found I was hitting my head against a brick wall. I couldn't break through. So I went to England, spent some time in England in the 2000s, and then I was in Norway. And around the 2000, I decided open source is the way to go with this IP. So I was fortunate that I retained my control and ownership of the IP, my patents, and I could dedicate them to open source, which is Creative Commons, right? Creative Commons licensing. So, that's been going very well. We have about 12 licensees around the world, and there are different communities, and I'm sure we'll hear from more and more of them as the time goes by here.
So, yeah, that's so cool how this is able to spread around the world by doing that. I know that like Elon Musk made all of the what's called Tesla patents open source as well. Just because the technology is important. What's important is that it's proliferated, right? And you're trying to spread this around the world. It's great technology.
It's the 21st century way, right? It's not about monopoly anymore, right? It used to be that was the strategy for business.
Right, and now it's more about proliferation of ideas supporting the greater good all across the world. And as we were speaking about like these roofs not getting too hot and stuff, it made me think that like this could be like, if not adjacent or a part of like a living structure. Like, is the intention for people to live adjacent or even in these solar roof pods? It is.
Yes, even in. Yes, that's right. In fact, it is a new paradigm of architecture. I call it ecological architecture because I don't have the plants in the building is not just for aesthetics, the kind of enjoying the beauty of plants. We have the plants to do business, to do the work, to cool the environment and produce biomass, right? They can't help it. They just produce biomass. It doesn't almost matter what kind of plants, although you could have some plants just, as I say, for their beauty, but you can have practical choice of what you will grow in. So think of your roof in your home instead of having an attic, that's opaque. You go upstairs and you're in a garden space. How about that?
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah,
having a garden in your attic.
Yeah, and your roof isn't overheating. And guess what? You're getting water every day. So what happens is, I didn't really explain that, but when the sunlight comes in, and leaves have two important processes that the nature has designed, and it's like a perfect design, and it's photosynthesis. Right? We're all aware of the photosynthesis, use of light for growth and creating life as we know it. But there's another one, which is transpiration. And what transpiration is doing is generating what we call green water. Why is it the green water? Because it is coming from the leaf. It's not evaporation. We're familiar with evaporation, but we're not familiar with transpiration. And the leaf is able to do that at a rate that equals the sunlight, the radiation that is reaching the leaf itself, right? The radiative energy of the sun. And even the warmth around it, all the radiative energy that's coming at that leaf is rejected, so the leaf doesn't overheat, right? The grass is always cool, right? You go out on a sunny day, a very hot day, the grass is cool, right? You don't mind that, walking on that. You go out on the pavement and burn your feet. So, how do plants control that problem with the overheating? Well, they do, right? We all know they do, but we're not sort of conscious of this thing. So that's what we take advantage of. And when we do this, we generate clean water. We call it the green water. So the plants push vapor into the air and we condense it. We're condensing that continuously. So it's a lot of water. It's clean water. So not only everyone can have food, everyone can have clean water. This is clean water from air, right? And
from
so
the air.
from the air, from the atmosphere. That's where the leaf, right, pushes water vapor into the air, and we're continuously condensing by the dew point. That's the cool inner skin. So we're cooling the inner skin, and continuously we're condensing the water vapor from the air, right, throughout the day, throughout the sun. The sun is shining, plants are cooling, transpiring, right, producing water vapor. We condense it. So you have 5 times more clean water produced. A plant is doing osmosis, right? Filtration with technological these membranes, right, that copy, right? It's biomimicry. What the cells do is osmosis, and that cleans the water. The water comes out of the plant is perfectly clean. Now we know there's also some volatiles in there, some organics, that are emitted by plants as well. But all of those are healthy, right? All of those are natural, and our health is improved by being closely, living closely with plants. That's my, personal take on it. That living
so this green water that.
Yeah.
So would you then feed that green water back into the plants, and so it's this continual cycle, or would you then go and consume that water?
That's exactly it. So the clean water becomes gray water, right, after you use it. And the plants don't mind that. You put it back into the irrigation. And so all the water cycle is circular. So you never run out of water, right, in this system. And, I was attached, because of my R&D in the 80s and the early 90s, I was attached to the USA space program, NASA program called Closed Ecological Life Support. Yeah, that was an actual, research program funded by NASA, was going at about $100 million a year to see how would you support life support where you can't resupply, okay? You can't deliver. Like we deliver all the resources to the space station. We deliver resources.
Okay, Mars.
But,
all right, go ahead. That was the sound effect by Mars. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, but yeah, we deliver, but we don't regenerate, because they haven't got that technology established, and I believe they squelched it. Okay, my own personal opinion, because I was engaged in the program, and I knew the people who were running the program, and they were working with GE before in the lamps, in the lamp division, and GE had a program that I got associated with. I actually took it over back in sort of the late 1980s. So by the early 1990s, these people were at the space program in San Jose, setting up these testing of life support for astronauts. So they actually built self-contained habitats. They locked them in. They sealed them in there. So they had a couple astronauts. I think actually it was only one astronaut. They sealed into these habitat space for 6 months with no resources in or out. It was a circular life support. And the Russians did it for a year. They had a person in there for a year. So this is old know-how. And it's been largely suppressed. You can't find out much about those programs these days.
Why do you think it's been suppressed?
Well, as I say, I knew the people running the program, directors out of GE, because they had done a lot of work on factory farming back in the 80s and even in the 70s. Yeah, people think that this kind of closed environment in the warehouse growing food. No, GE studied that themselves when they invented their high-pressure sodium lights. And they thought, wow, we've got an opportunity. So they studied it. But, what I think was the issue here is that what if people had abundance? What if people had all the water they need, clean water, food, regenerated, energy regenerated, without costly inputs, right? What if that was built into our homes, right? Well, that would be kind of difficult for consumer economy to live with.
They'd be like self-sufficient in a way.
Cool. Yep.
I know we got crypto bust, the crypto geezers. What do the geezers think about this?
Well, thank you, Jimmy, and Richard. Good to see you again. Richard stopped by this morning for our show, and we got to hear a heads up of what he was going to talk about today. But I worked in the shipping industry for years. I worked on all the big ships, cruise ships and things of that nature. For the years, one of the things I was really amazed with, I had the opportunity to get on a Russian icebreaker, one of their big ones. And we went up on the top deck, and guess what? It was a complete solarium up there to grow their own food. And those were nuclear units, and they could travel forever, and they use reverse osmosis for water. I mean, I just need to bring that technology, like Richard's talking about, to our land areas to help the masses of people. We've been doing a lot of this kind of stuff already out on the ocean. And so I think it's great to hear people starting to finally look at, hey, we need to start being self-sustaining. We need to start taking care of our communities. As a community, it's going to take care of our whole world itself. And the other one is we get self-satisfaction when you go out there and you grow that food and you get to eat it. Boy, I tell you what, it's a nice thing to be able to say, I did this. So I really believe in it, and I believe very strongly. And the other one, I believe in your trees. Your trees are very important to be able to continue this process for the future of our children and our grandchildren. So that's what I have to say. I hope that helps a little bit.
Hey, that's fantastic. Yeah.
Absolutely. And speaking of trees, little segue, Richard, I'd love to invite you back here tomorrow. I am doing the most insane Twitter space that I have ever done by far. I've never been in a Twitter space for more than maybe a few hours. I'm going to be live for more than 12 tomorrow. If not 24. I might just double it because I did this poll. Okay, there's a big reason why, right? I would never normally just go this crazy on Twitter Spaces, but we have a big goal for tomorrow, and that is to raise funds for 81 million trees. That number is very, it's not a random number. The reason is we're trying to get the attention of a person called Mr. Beast. So Mr. Beast I'm pretty sure he's the #1 YouTuber. Just one of the channels has 105 million subscribers. One of the ways that he was able to grow so quickly was whenever he'd get sponsorship, he literally give all the money out to homeless people, to subscribers, to other people, and just reinvest in the videos. And that's how I was able to grow so quickly. And now we have a little bit of sponsorship interest in this show. And so I'm going to be giving everything away in this viral competition to try to get the guy's attention. Because when he got to 20 million subscribers, everyone kind of, quote unquote, spammed him on Twitter to say, hey, you got 20 million subscribers, plant 20 million trees. And because everyone kind of got together and did that and got his attention, he's like, all right, I'll do it. And so he did. And
Wow.
so within like a month or two, he was able to now he's at like 24 million trees funded, right? But now
Wow.
he's at 105 million subscribers. So it's not one tree, one subscriber as it was when he initially did that. So all we're trying to do is continue to make it up to one tree, one subscriber. Now it might seem like this massive goal. Okay, you did 24. How the hell are you going to get to 81 million? Well, there's an organization called 4Trees, which I'm a part of. 4Trees Club is partnered with Rotary International, United Nations Environmental Program to pioneer the world's most cost-effective, sustainable, and transparent trees. And it's only costs 9.4 cents per mangrove tree. And mangroves, if you don't know, they remove 8 to 10 times the amount of carbon as well compared with terrestrial forests. And so they're incredibly effective, incredibly cost-effective. So it's actually going to cost less than a third of what he's already raised to hit the 24 million trees to actually get up to 105 in total, which would be one tree, one subscriber. So we're giving out 1 Ethereum. We have a commitment of 1 Ethereum, which we're giving out in this competition. And we're also giving out 5 NFTs. There's 1 social B NFT, which I've got, which I believe the floor is around 0.3 Ethereum right now or something like that. And also, 3 Axie Infinity NFTs. Another person has committed 1 cool, innovative NFT watch. So it's a physical watch with this cool technology which connects to an NFT to verify it and all that cool stuff. So we're giving all of this away in this competition when we go hard to tag, to create memes, to creatively get the attention of this gentleman, Mr. Beast, tomorrow. So I'm going live from 10 a.m. East Africa time, which is like midnight Pacific. But I'm probably going to be going for like 24 hours. I've purchased a 6-pack of Red Bull, and I don't know. I was like, hey, do you think I should just keep it going until we get the guy's attention? And I put that up in a poll, and a lot of people said yes. And so I might not be able to stop this. I might keep going for a week. I don't know. But I'm very determined because, the impact from this, 81 million trees is such a impactful thing with it in itself. That's more trees than there are people in Thailand. But if you properly leverage carbon forwards, you can actually turn that 81 million trees into 1.6 billion. But you can 19x them through carbon forwards. And so that's our plan, is to really, exponentially reverse the effects of climate change by leveraging carbon forwards and reinvesting everything back into the trees. And so yeah, Rich, if you're able to come by tomorrow, you're more than welcome. I know Crypto Bus, you're going to come through. Much love. I really appreciate that graphic that you made, man. That was really, really cool. I saw the episode, was it 1 to Infinity or something like that? Really, really cool. I love it, brother. And yeah, okay. So Marissa, I'm going to invite you back up here, right? But try not to press the buttons unless no one's talking, right? So that's the thing. Just try not to interrupt people. Okay, I will let you back up. Okay, but we have the don't talk over people policy. And yeah, if there's a pause, or you can raise your hand, and I'll call on you either way. But welcome back up, Marissa.
Hi, I'm here
welcome,
now. Finally.
Welcome. How are we doing?
How are you guys today?
Okay, I'm good. How are you, Marissa?
I'm lovely. This is actually my first time being on Twitter, period. I just resurrected it at 12 our time today. I think that you should go live for as long as possible, and maybe even check in to see what the Guinness record is right now and see if you can tap into that. Like, I think you might be into some type of wave there by staying live until you get that attention and get that award. Like, just do it.
Thank you. Appreciate the encouragement.
I'm happy to have everybody here today. Really interested in Richard's really amazing technology. Aubrey, myself, Ian, Richard, we all work really hard to get this technology out there. Some people sound like they think the technology is relatively new. However, you should know that Richard's been working on this for more than 40 years, and that big oil and gas and all of the big business that Richard had mentioned here is what suppresses all of our green energy and technology. So we all have to do our part to fight back against the 95% wealth holders, so to speak. But yeah,
respect.
I love that you're doing this from Kenya, and happy to be here. The team will continue to be here and support you. And I think that we're onto something with, trading our food for NFTs and technology. and PurePod can be airlifted anywhere in the world. So it's really amazing. And if anybody has any questions, we are all very well versed on, Richard's magic.
Oh, I love it. So you two are working together. You're working with Richard.
Yes, I'm
Are
part of the
you
team, very well versed. Just not versed with Twitter or being live or whatever those sound emojis are. But if you ask
okay?
me
No worries.
anything about my
You're all good.
greenhouses, we're good.
Yes. Okay, great. So are you making the greenhouses? Are you expanding the greenhouses? What's your role?
So I'm going to be a franchise licensee up here in North America, one of the only, and we're going to try to get it deployed across the world. We moved manufacturing from Shanghai during the pandemic over to Saskatoon in Saskatchewan, Canada, post-pandemic, which will really, change things. We're working now with Norseman Structures and ready for full production. As I say, we're airlifting all over any climate, all over this lovely planet. Only this one for now. Mars, we're sorry, we can't help you. But yeah, these they're fully customizable, so you can do anything you want with it. People think that it might only be a greenhouse, but it's actually your home. Richard's working on cars, Airbuses. I don't want to exploit things, but we actually have floating donut-shaped greenhouses that can sit on the ocean. Now I'm thinking maybe I might
Damn.
use it to clean up the ocean while I have my own ecosystem on top. I'm not sure.
Yo, that is so cool. Yeah, I saw that on the website. So these are like floating houses, like you live there, you grow your own food, you're just floating across the
That's
ocean. Is
right.
that the idea?
That's right. And they will be controlled from the phone. You can have them clear or opaque. You can control the climate inside. They're insulated with bubble technology, a larvae that Richard had mentioned. They produce a soap bubble. You can actually have foam parties, like the kids like to have raves and stuff. He has demonstrated this already very well, that he can have foam insulation. Um, he Richard's honestly working on flying cars right now, so there is no limit to this inventor. We've got a Nikola Tesla live in the flesh today. I have nothing but utmost respect for the man, and I love any of his time. His inventions are truly going to change my life and a lot of other people's.
Wow, that's phenomenal. Super cool. I love that. I
I
love
love
that
it. I love
foam
it.
parties aren't out of the books.
Thank you, Marissa, so much. And by the way, I must say, Marissa is an Indigenous woman here in Canada and is leader. She's really stepping up and with enthusiasm. And we need the young people. We need the women and the girls. We just to build the world we know is possible, right? We need a lot of energy.
I think I might
Exactly.
be one of the only females in here today, which is kind of, outnumbering. That's why I figured I should say something and let everyone know how versed I am with this technology and also with the metaverse and NFTs and all the blockchain. And I see a lot of different ways that a poor person or a person that's disadvantaged, suppressed, or oppressed could find their way out of it by simply even having a cell phone and access to the internet, possibly by generating a game that pays them in an NFT type way, or you're purchasing an NFT that now gives you the technology to feed and house and water your whole family. So people are already trading NFTs for properties, and I can see that PurePod will be gearing itself up to be fully competitive in this space. The metaverse Web3 will be fully active, I predict, within 300 days, because they just move so turbulent. It's like we hop onto a water slide and then we've now shot into a jet and we've left the atmosphere. So it's very turbulent in this industry.
Here with you, and then you've got the young blood as well that's combining that great wisdom with these new technologies to see what's really possible, right? There's so much that is possible if these technologies are properly leveraged, And I'm glad that it's your first day on Twitter. You're coming to my space. I'm so grateful. That's amazing. I'm glad you're not a bot. Sometimes when people come in with, it's like a new profile. I'm like, oh no, is this gonna be a troll? But like, no, you're a genuine human. It's great to have you up here. You're most welcome. I'm doing these spaces 6 days a week, and like I said, tomorrow is gonna be this absurd, wonderful space. We've got some phenomenally talented musicians, Blondish, phenomenal musician coming through. We've got over 40 speakers, including some with 250,000 followers, like just coming through to support this mission of raising funds for 81 million trees. And so yeah, I'd love to invite you all back tomorrow, and let's keep these discussions alive. And I'd also love to, you're speaking about how do we expand this around the world, and it seems like you're a pioneer of that, of implementing these and expanding them, because my brother is getting into like trying to solve the food crisis problem. Like there are big parts of Kenya where food is going to be a really big issue. It already is, and so he just literally met with the governor, who's like head of environment for all these other governors, to try to implement these programs, leveraging regenerative farming and stuff like that. And I wonder how this could implement. Like what are your thoughts on how
I think that
how we can expand this internationally? Yeah,
I've been taking notes on any countries that are at risk with food, where they're importing too much of their goods, whether it be water or food. So the countries that you're mentioning, what they should do is contact Puripod or Podnet, one or the two, and get a franchise license, and literally they will airlift the structures in, and they can be built on footings right on the earth right away, and then your problem with food, water, even soap, and everything is gone immediately. This is what Richard has been avidly working on, and he can show active projects. Same with Aubrey. On the website, usually there are listed active projects. Some of them even have live video streaming of construction and what's going on, just to show people that it is real. It's really happening. It's been happening. It's patented technology here. But if you can show anyone the technology, it's just kind of like lighting the way of, hey, you could have this franchise license, and now you can have these structures, housing, food, and food security for entire nations, just provided that they embrace this. But knowing that the 95% wealth holders aren't going to like this, they're not going to endorse it. It in no way needs big gas and oil, or even to be on any grid. These are on grid or off grid structures. I personally have 80 acres up north in Ontario, and I will be trying to fully do them off grid. So
amazing. Well, I mean,
everything.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, education is just power. Knowledge is power. If we can just spread the word of the education, then everyone will have access to it.